I spent a week getting absolutely abused, as you know, because I said, oh, maybe Hooksy's position isn't tenable in G2 anymore. I think that's like just such a vanilla opinion. I was very surprised to see people get upset about it, and I guess the reason people did was a component of it was to point out that, like, you know, his stand-in Stewie didn't play particularly well either, and that's also a statistical reality. I had no expectation he would. He's not played pro for 2 years. So anyway, I just did a tweet, and for whatever reason, he got involved in it. And then it just sent off this chain reaction of drama where people were like contacting my employers, threatening me, you know, just the usual stuff in esports, because esports fans are garbage. They're trash. That happened for like, I don't know, it kind of took about 4 days for all the stupidity to stop. And then I was like, right, well, we'll have a nice, quiet, relaxing stream today. And anyway, Maui tweeted out, oh, I'm going to be interviewing Stewie on my stream, and I was like, oh wow, that's a good get. You know, I expected Stewie would pop up on a podcast or something. I thought maybe with Thorin, but for Maui to do a live interview was really cool for his stream. And obviously, you know, me and Maui are good buddies, and I want his stream to do really well. And so I was like, you know, okay, no big deal. And then I got tagged on Twitter. Oh yeah, he's talking about, you know, okay, so let's have a listen. And I want to just present the things that he said about me previously and the reasons he got upset. And then I want to present the reality, because I'm like astounded that we're kind of here. And I'm like, any positive sentiment I've got towards him now, there just isn't any there, because it's so absurd that the things he's saying and the things he's doing compared to what I did, which was a criticism of Hooksy. It didn't criticize anybody else. It barely criticized him, just pointing out he was statistically below what Hooksy would normally contribute. And it's like, listen, I think it's great, brother. You want another trophy. You know, you can milk this as long as you need to. They're going to be few and far between because of the career path you've chosen. And you can milk this till the end of time. But let's stay grounded in reality and the things that you've said and the things that you've done in relation to me, that you can't really justify them, unfortunately. I can certainly justify saying you didn't play well because the statistics are there and you even agree with it. So anyway, let's get into this. I'm going to show you like a reminder of my tweet as well. But first, we'll just play the interview. And I also want you to pay attention to the chat, which was pretty fucking disgusting as well. That's why I'm going to leave it on this view. But right, so remember the things that I said, right? And the things that he went on stream and said afterwards, just for a little recap. He did this weird thing where he like said, I tried to give Richard Lewis the benefit of the doubt despite the things I've seen, but I should have known better. And then he just left it. He didn't say what those things were, and he was like, all the things I've heard, all the things I'd seen. And it's like, so, you know, he's clearly trying to imply I've done something really bad or sinister behind the scenes, which is like, that's just such an overreaction to me pointing out that you had a 0.88 rating at a tournament and really got carried by like Munisi and Nico. And again, the tweet isn't even about him because he's not relevant in a pro sense. The tweet is about Hooksy, who is masquerading as a tier 1 IGL. That's what that's about. But anyway, so this is the interview segment.
Your set idea of how to play and like the best percentage, he kind of fills it out, and if he feels like he wants to push it, he's just gonna like push it on the spot. So it kind of like backfires sometimes. Like it backfired a little bit in some of the matches, but hey man, if it works, what can you say?
So after this happened, I mean, like you had this big like bout with Richard about the game, and because he was saying some stuff about like your stats weren't good or whatever, and you were defending yourself on Twitter. Like I think Richard probably is kind of like, in this case, he was sort of epitomizing the typical online hater, and you responded to him like, what do you think of people that like, what do you
like, what's my thoughts on it?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, this was my honest like approach to why I even responded. Like, I don't have anything against Richard Lewis whatsoever. Like, I never had like any bad interactions, never had any bad comments about him.
Right, so immediately out the gate, like total fucking stark contrast to like what was actually said on his personal stream. So never had any negative interactions with me because he hasn't, and I generally don't have negative interactions with players, and the negative interactions I have had generally stay private. You know, yes, a few players have tried to be silly buggers and try and fucking square up to me because they didn't like something I said in the podcast. Again, typically about their performances. They get very precious about that. Obviously, we did openly talk about the time when Nico, when he was a much younger man and less mature, got absolutely shit-faced and couldn't pay his bar tab, and me and Thorin had to pick up a $500 fucking bar tab for him and his friends, right? And you know, we never asked for the money back. We didn't bring it up publicly, but then he started fucking, again, being abusive on Twitter, so Duncan fucking lit him up with both barrels and said, remember that time we had to pay like a $500 fucking bar tab because you were too wasted and you were arguing with the bouncers. I mean, what you have to remember as well, on that night out, Nico was even saying to me, you should pay the bar tab because I'm here playing at your tournament. I mean, that's the level of shit he was on back in the Nico Sports era. But I just, I just tanked like whatever it was, $300, $400, and Duncan paid the rest. And it never occurred to me, by the way, to ever get that money back, right? Because, at the end of the day, I always looked at it like we were a wandering troupe of... It was like being in the circus, you know what I mean? We're a wandering troupe of fucking people. We're all like some fucked up dysfunctional family, but we're all in the same world, we're all in the same realm, and we're all making a contribution to the same product. So it would never have occurred to me to be like, listen, I'll demand that I get that money back from Nico. I know next time I see Nico, he'll probably pick up a check or, whatever at some point. It is going to happen on a long enough time scale. Spoiler, he offered to pay the money back years later when Duncan lit him up publicly, and we said give it to a charity, right? We don't want it. Just give it to a charity. It's fine. It's $500. Who cares? So, anyway, I generally have good relationships with players. I talk to players privately all the time. I try and help them out with stuff. I've acted as a contract negotiator, a contract translator. I've connected people to agents, to lawyers. I've got people recruited into teams. I've built bridges between people in the background. I've helped retiring players transition into desk work. The idea, by the way, that anybody, any player or anybody in CS would actually have a negative thing to say about me. And again, I'm not talking about plebs. I'm not talking about people on Twitter, people who don't like me expressing my opinions or whatever. I'm talking about bona fide people I've worked with. I'm one of the most hated people in the community. So don't you think if I was a piece of shit behind the scenes, it would have all come tumbling out by now? I would have been accused of all of this stuff. But Stewie knew exactly, and I'm seeing a lot of this lately, people who aren't very socially or emotionally intelligent, but just have the right level to be able to manipulate people dumber than them. That's pretty much esports in a nutshell. He knew by implying that people would believe the worst possible thing about me. But here it is, in his own fucking words, never had a problem with me, never had a negative interaction, never heard anything negative about me. So, I mean, I can't even begin to fathom why he would have ever said the opposite, right? And rile up his fan base. Well, obviously, I can fathom why.
We never really had any bad, interactions ever, to be honest. The only interaction that I can clearly ever remember with him for the first time, one of the first moments was at E-League Season 1, when they first... This was not even E-League Major or anything like that. It was the first season of E-League, and he was there, and I just remember after that...
Context for that, Stewie hadn't long been on... I mean, in real terms, hadn't very long been on Cloud9. Obviously, he had gone through quite a lot. I was one of the people that had defended Stewie2k online when people like Mo and other tenured players, some of whom he would later go on to play with, they were all accusing him of cheating. And one of the things that I've always done is I've always stood up for players when other pros don't know who they are, don't know their reputation, and accuse them of cheating. When Pasha, back in, this must have been very early on in CSGO, back when Pasha and the Polish boys, who, again, I know them very well, they were accusing JW of being a cheater, and I said, no, he's a good kid, right? And you shouldn't really be doing that. You lost the game It's one of those. You shouldn't be threatening these players. But that was back when JW was on a team called, it was something like Drugs, Money and Guns. Something like that. Or Bitches, Money and Guns. I can't remember. But anyway, I stuck up for JW. When JW then was calling Rops a cheating retard, was his exact words, and saying he would never go to a LAN. I told JW, remember when the Polish said that about you? You shouldn't be doing that, homie. You should be looking out for this kid. And obviously we went through all that brouhaha of Rops, having to go and play it, fucking face it, and prove that he was a legit player. Now, obviously, one of the most respected players in the world. Everybody would love an opportunity to play with a guy like Rops. And Stewie was one of a long line of kids that had come through North America, been accused of cheating by all the players there, because the gatekeeping in NA Counter-Strike used to be absolutely unreal. It was true all through 1.6, Source, and early Go. It wasn't really until iBuyPower shook things up that dynamic stopped. It was one of the kind of good byproducts of that story. It decimated the scene to such a degree there was no gatekeeping anymore. So anyway, I was like, listen, I wrote an article on Breitbart, so that's where I was at the time when I had 6 months to fill before I went and got the Turner job. Put an article on Breitbart saying Stewie2k is a legit player, and him going to Cloud9 is the best thing that can happen for his career, and if he keeps his head on his shoulders, he's going to do really well. And he was doing really well at Cloud9, and this is when we met him for the first time, Stewie2k. Remember, at that time, Season 1 E-League is 2016, so I don't even know how old he would have been, but he was a kid, He was a young man at the start of his playing career, right? So all of this is important context.
That event, like all the talent was there, like Sue, like the old NIP that everyone knows was like that NIP, and like it was way back. So the first time I met Richard Lewis was there, and I don't even remember how we got to this point of the night, but like it was just me and Richard Lewis like in his room. Like we were just like all end of the event, like we were all talking, like I ended up in his room, and like Sue was just about to come up as well. And I just had like a moment to myself with him, and he was just like giving me props, giving me praise, saying that like I'm doing a good job, like I'm a good kid, like I got a good head on my shoulders, blah blah blah, and like a lot of words of encouragement. And like he didn't even have to do that. I don't know why he did that, but I always took it as like a good way to start a relationship, I guess. Like,
right, so immediately you can see the chat. What the chat has assumed here is I must be some sort of predatory groomer, which is nice, because obviously, like, again, for context, this was E-League. Everyone was shit-faced all the time. This was like the peak of the fucking partying, because we were doing it on Turner Sports dime. Now, I lived in Atlanta, so, I mean, but I could get hotel rooms for people. I could get one for myself if we just got shit-faced and we wanted to keep on drinking, because how it worked in the hotel, because Atlanta state laws, at 2 a.m. the partying stopped. And so at 4 a.m. the strip clubs turned out. So you had to go to your hotel room, but then you had the mini bar. You could order drinks up to the room. You just couldn't be drinking in a bar after 2 a.m. And in esports, 2 a.m., that's when the party's getting started. And without naming names, there were people who wanted to smoke weed as well in Atlanta, which is obviously, it's not legalized there. So you have to be a bit fucking, discreet about that. And so anyway, Sue is Sue with tequila, she can put me under the table. That's Smix. She's always been able to handle a tequila. And so 2 a.m., she's like, listen, I want to keep going. I want to get some shots in. I'm like, yeah, I'll be your wingman. I'll drink with you. We'll go up to one of the rooms. I'll get the exec card out, and we'll go up to one of the rooms, and we'll just fucking drink in there. So that's what we did. And Stewie was coming along as well. Stewie wanted to have a drink. And by the way, he's an adult at this point, right? But I don't know if he, would he have been 21 in 2016? Probably not. So there's that to consider as well. And so anyway, we're just, having a few beers, and while we're waiting for Sue to come up with some tequila, and by the way, other people as well, because I think, some of the fucking Swedish players were there as well, like some of the NIP guys he was talking about. It's hard to remember, it was just one night and a bunch of long nights. was like, basically I was like, listen, dude, like it's good to meet you in person. You've been playing really well, and I'm just trying to tell him, like, you know, like fucking sky's the limit. Like you see how you're living at the moment. Like you got to keep a good head on your shoulders, because keep in mind as well, this was like one of the first times. He'd really had like true adoration from fans as well. Like E-League was a pretty intimate set, so you just got fucking mobbed everywhere you went if you were a player, like people asking for autographs and stuff. And obviously if you were playing on Cloud9, you know, like Stewie, that would have been really intense for him, because, you know, he went from Splice. This was his first experience of the big time. So, yeah, we ended up sitting down, having a few drinks, and I'm just telling him, like, you know, and again, remember, other people are coming up in the room. Not that it should fucking matter. The idea that, you know, it, like, however old I was back then, at like fucking 34, the idea I'm going to be grooming a 19-year-old boy is pretty fucking gross that it's even in people's heads. But this is the level of esports fans that you have to fucking deal with, unfortunately. They'll immediately go to that place. And so, anyway, I just wanted to, like, give him some encouragement. You know, it was a big occasion for all of us. It was a big occasion for me, you know. And I was, you know, and like when Ernie Johnson came and pulled me to one side after our first show and said, you know, you're a good host, Richard. I've seen your tape. I've seen what you've done. I've seen the show. You could do anything. It doesn't just have to be esports. I want you to know that you belong here. That was like really nice for me. That was like a big moment for me. I didn't like assume, oh, fucking one of the nicest men in media is grooming me. It's like sometimes you just need a pep talk. You just need an attaboy. You know what I mean? So I always try and encourage people if I think they're a little bit out of their element. Like, I try and bring people along. I know how hard it is. I know what it's like to lead a life in a spotlight. And young people these days have got problems that I never had to deal with. Like, you know, you're always being filmed. You say something on social media. Everyone's patrolling what you say, what you like, what you post on Insta, who you hook up with. It's fucking crazy. I had none of that, man. Like, I would have come into esports pre-cancelled if anyone had seen how I used to roll when I was 19, 20 years old. I was a piece of shit. Legitimate. So I had a lot of fucking emotional problems. And so, you know, the idea that you know, there's something inherently sinister about trying to, you know, which Stewie himself doesn't even say, is wild. But these are like esports fans. You know what I mean? This is like what you're dealing with. And it's just like, I don't know, man. I'm never going to make this mistake ever again, by the way. Like, there's just no point in trying to do nice things for anybody. There's no point in trying to be, like, positive in people's lives. There's no point in trying to, like, you know, no one ever really appreciates it. No one gives a shit. It always gets lost in translation. People end up leveraging it as a weapon against you. Like, fuck it, man. Everyone's on their own. You're not getting no fucking outstretched hand from me, like, ever again. It's just not worth it. The juice is never worth the squeeze on that. You know, and I don't like having to say that, but that's just like the reality of where we find ourselves in modern esports, you know. I've done a lot of stuff behind the scenes for a lot of people. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, why? So a bunch of fucking weirdo fans can imply that, like, you're a fucking groomer or a pedophile? Like, yeah, miss me with that shit, guys. Like, I'm good.
Having it that strong. And since that point, like, there was never any interaction with Richard Lewis. The next one that I really remember is one in Sweden, the major, a few years ago. And it was just, I think you might have been there too. Like, I think it was just a dinner. And, like, he was there with Oren. Like, were you there?
No, I wasn't at this one.
Okay. We just all went to dinner. It was like me, Zeus, Ricardo, and like a bunch of the talent and Richard Lewis and them, and like we greeted each other. We said, "Hey, blah blah blah," and like that was pretty much it. And like since the EG like video that he made.
So that dinner as well, I mean, that was like another big sit-down dinner. I know people probably can't comprehend this, but I want you to remember, this was after I called out Dead. You know, the manager of the Brazilian teams. This is after I called him out for the partial ownership stuff and the entanglement. This is after, you know, I must have called Fallen washed like 1 billion times. And yet, incredibly, here we all are. We all get to break bread with each other. We all, you know, they hit me up and invited me with dinner. It was when I think Stewie might have still been It was either he was still on Liquid or he was about to join EG. I can't remember. And there's all this like privy information, going around. Stuff I would just never dream of repeating. You're at dinner, you got to be respectful and stuff. And again, me and Stewie, like, we had a long talk and a catch up again, like, and it's, no problem, no fuss, no muss. I do what I do, you do what you do. We don't have to snipe at each other on social media. We can all have a good time, we can have some drinks, some other things, some, whatever it might be, and we can just enjoy each other's company. Because again, I always believed, we were all part of the same thing. But this is what I mean, like, players, they always break the sacred covenant. They always break it. Broadcast talent are expected to, like, just be one of the boys, when we're all out on these things, and keep our lips sealed and not say anything. And then the first time they catch feelings because you say they didn't play very well, they'll just fucking weaponize everything they've ever seen. I mean, remember when, like, we had fucking Zeus was just filming Thorin at a fucking after party? I mean, the idea, right, like, Zeus the Navi, IGL, not the Brazilian coach. The idea that you would film at an after party and upload it to the internet and nobody would call you out on that. Like, player privilege is fucking unreal, by the way. Players get away with just doing all sorts of fucked up shit, and the scene just, like, forgive them every time. Whereas, like, I can't even... I think about the things that I'm hated for. I can't even fucking not do things. People invent shit to fucking hate me about, like the fucking Babam story and stuff like that. I can't even behave. People go, he must be doing something bad. He must be. It's been 6 months. We got to find an excuse to hate on him again. So it's like, it's just absolutely fucking wild. Like, the one-way traffic that this street runs is crazy. And it's like, we have to, like, totally lick players' asses all the time. We have to go to events. We have to watch them, drinking the night before a big game. We have to watch them, cheating on their fucking girlfriends, sometimes their wives, whatever it might be. And we're just of course, man. That's your life. That ain't nothing to do with me. That's got nothing to do with the game. That is well outside the ballpark. But believe you me, if they see you doing something fucking crazy, they're 100% going to throw it back in your fucking face. If you ever say anything like, 0.88 isn't that good. And that's exactly what happened here, and I don't get how that's excusable. Especially when, by his own words, what have I ever done? What have I ever done to this guy? Like, nothing. Try to be encouraging, try to be, like, a positive mentor, try to welcome him in a new space, try to, like, help some of the pressures, the external pressures, not seem so big, inviting him to, like, parties, introducing him to people like Sue and other players. Like, what have I done bad in all of this? Wild.
Honestly, when he made it, I also thought, like, he's just doing his job, I guess. Like, he can say all the shit he wants. Like, I don't blame him.
And this is the EG video he's talking about now, and it's like, also, I mean, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to do there? Like, yes, some of it was just about how mismanaged the CS team is. One of the fucked up things EG did, one of the many fucked up things EG did, they gave this kid the comp... And by the way, he's not the same guy. He's not the same guy. He's not the wide-eyed kid that came through who really wanted to be there, really positive energy, great teammate. He hasn't been that guy for years. He's an egotist now. And it's pretty apparent in the way that he talks. He's like, he's a fucking, when I called him a narcissist, it's no wonder, like, that's a deep cut for him. It's no wonder. And people are going, the irony of that. Again, I don't think people understand what narcissism is. Like, I don't believe everything I do is right. I don't believe all the things I've ever done in my life are totally correct. I don't believe that, for instance, my way is always the infallible way. Right? I don't. And I'm more than capable of admitting that. I do not fit any of the fucking textbook narcissism definitions at all. But somebody does. I mean, for example, what can you say about a player who, he's got to be the IGL. He's got to pick the team. He doesn't work for a coach. He fucking absolutely won't even look at a coach when they're talking to them. Won't even add them on Steam Friends. I don't respect you. I know my ways, right? Won't even... accept olive branches from people because he knows he's right. What does it say about somebody that chews up a much more tenured and experienced leader on stage for the whole world to see, like he did with Fallen in that clip, literally like calling him bad at the game in the middle of a match, right? All the clashes that were going on back in Team Liquid, and what did they do? You know what? I mean, dude, even before Stu Mania had sort of took over, right? Remember, at the major that they won, famously, what he was walking off saying, "I don't want to play with that guy," talking about fucking Skadoodle. So, you know, I don't know. Looks pretty narcissistic to me, bro. And so, obviously, over at fucking EG, when I did that, it's like, you have to understand, it was part of a larger puzzle. Do I care that in the long term that Stewie treated his coach like shit? I mean, I'd known Malik a long time. Malik lost his job because of Stewie, because Stewie refused to give him a chance. Now, listen, Stewie can publicly say, "Oh, forget about it, bro." Malik can't forget about it. His career trajectory could have been totally different. Now, obviously, look, at the end of the day, it was evil geniuses. It was doomed to fail anyway. In fact, you could probably make an argument Stewie did him a favor. But it's still, like, is it a shitty thing to cost someone their job? Yes or no? Especially when they've done nothing wrong. And if you say, well, it's complicated, no, you're being disingenuous. And that's literally what Stewie did. So I don't know why it's, again, not a big deal to people, because it was certainly a big deal to Malik. He hasn't bounced back at all. And so, anyway, you know, yeah, I did the EG video and a series of videos and a series of reports. That org had got to the point where it was affecting people's life, you know, force, life essence. People were being harmed, essentially. And yeah, I'm not going to let that fucking slide. I'm never going to turn a blind eye to that in esports. These are young fucking vulnerable adults. But more importantly, when you give the keys to people who aren't emotionally mature enough to fucking do it, like, you saw what happened. EG did nothing. Stewie went to Pro League as an IGL when they realized they couldn't qualify, disrespected his opponents, disrespected the tournament by saying, "I don't care about the last game." Now, by the way, there was a theoretical argument that if EG had finished bottom again at that tournament, they could have been removed from the league entirely, costing them millions of dollars. Stewie didn't care. Stewie didn't care about his own employer. And this is why him now framing himself as some sort of hero, like, respect my teammates, bro. You didn't even respect your teammates. You didn't respect the org. You didn't respect your paycheck. You didn't respect your coach. You don't respect anyone but yourself, kid. And that's the problem. That's where you're at right now. And people might fucking glaze you, all these little fucking weirdo. By the way, good luck milking this shit, because it goes 8K after the tournament, 3K, you're hovering at 2.5, you're going to be back to like sub 1K views as a fucking one of the greatest NA players of all time, not on a pro team. I don't know, brother. Like, at some point, there has to be a come to Jesus moment for you. You have got to see this for what it is, but you can't, and no one else is going to give it to you straight. Now, we ain't got that kind of relationship. You can fuck off as far as I'm concerned. Like, after what you tried to imply about me, you went beyond a line I'm going to ever sort of, you know, forgive and forget over. But I will just say this, like, at EG, the facts don't lie. For all that time, you disrespected the org, you disrespected the brand, you disrespected the managers that had given you autonomy, you disrespected your paycheck, you disrespected your coaches, and you sat smoking your mind into fucking mush, grinding Valorant for hours at a time, hoping to go pro over there and putting feelers out. And we all know you talk to and what your aspirations were. Right? That to me is disrespectful. That to me is you've given up on the game. You've given up on yourself at that point, frankly. So, nah. Like, making the EG video wasn't so much about you. It was more about a dysfunctional org. But yeah, you were part of that dysfunction. You were empowered by bad people to be a bad person yourself. And you took every fucking opportunity that they gave it to, you know, that they gave you, and you fucking ran with it. And you just wasted everyone's time, and you wasted your time. You wasted your career. I've said it many times. I don't like the timeline we're in, where I have to watch fucking this version of Stewie, can't hang at tier 1 anymore, grinding shitty, meaningless pugs, playing with the mythic guys. Like, you should be on a tier 1 team. You should still be the smoke criminal. But, like I say, man, you've wasted your talent. You wasted your career. And an aberration, winning Dallas because of better players, it don't change that, bruv. It doesn't. And you should look at the totality of your career, and you should feel sad.
He's doing what he's got to do. And I never even like went out of my way to like really message him about it. Like I just kind of took it for what it is, and I never like had any like disrespect towards him. And then after like this event, when I saw him make the tweet, and like pretty
Right.
much he's just trying to do everything he can to take all the credit away, not from just myself, like even from like G2.
Okay, so let's assess this claim. I tried to take all the credit away from G2. This one is kind of like fucking staggering, because what this says to me is like more so than anything to do with CS, like reading comprehension is in the bin, like diabolical, like catch-up class level, because in no way does it detract from anyone on G2 except Hooksy. If you're telling me you're defending Hooksy, then okay, we can have that conversation. But there's absolutely no way you could interpret what I said as taking away from G2. I'm going to bring you up the tweet and read it word for word. Unfortunately, there's no other way to interpret G2's victory against a stacked field at a major tournament. I don't know, they all sound like compliments to me. As an indictment on Hooksy's tactical approach to the game. Winning an event with a stand-in who played worse than him in all but one series should realistically be the end. That in no way detracts from G2. That actually praises G2. That is saying what G2 did with a stand-in who was worse than the regular IGL is an outstanding achievement, and one that calls Hooksy's career into question because it's an outstanding achievement. I don't even understand how this could, A, be interpreted as a spicy tweet, or B, be interpreted as any way critical of G2. And I even added it, nobody cares about the second part, right? But I even added this, right? So, again, this is a connected tweet. It would be impossible to miss this. Right? Still, while in the past I'd have said Nico as IGL as a poison to success, this new, more mature and experienced Nico can certainly have my blessing, have a crack at it. Also opens up the possibility of adding a bit more firepower to alleviate pressure on Munacy. I'm literally saying Nico is more mature, better. He can be an IGL. He just proved it. How am I detracting? How does that detract? It just doesn't. And so he then tried to come in and go, oh yeah, I respect, he said repeatedly, I respect Richard's opinion. You clearly don't respect my opinion about CS, right? And so he said, you're entitled to your own opinion, and I respect it. I'll agree that the performance wasn't on par, right? Even to my own expectations. But you know jack all about CS inside the server. Now, listen, this is just something that all players are going to level at all fucking broadcast talent for time, you know, from now until the end of time. It is just something they are going to say. We are players, we know best, right? You are broadcast talent, you don't know what you're talking about. That will always be the case. That's the case in every sport. The commentators apparently don't know what they're talking about. The journalists don't know what they're talking about. The analysts don't know what they're talking about. The analysts don't know what they're talking about, even when they're ex-players in like the NFL, because current NFL players say they don't know game because it's changed now. It is a dance as old as time, and it's fine to play this game. But obviously, for you to overreact to it, and clearly didn't even read the tweet, it's ridiculous. And you did this. I wish you could just be honest about it. You did this because you got upset because I said your stats were bad, and I said you didn't play very well. That's the real reason. Stop trying to spin this fucking narrative that, oh, you were doing it for the team. That's not you, bro. You've proven that with your actions. It's not you. You're pissed off because I called you out as not being good, right? You were shaking like a shitting dog on stage. You got carried by better players. It's fine. It happens. You were still on a par with fucking Nexa. So, I mean, what does that say? But no. So you wanted to set your little Goonie fan base on me. And that's what you did. And so that's why you got both barrels with this. And it, by the way, nothing in it wrong. Never had a narcissistic pro shoot this one at me before. Look at your career trajectory. Until today, Twitter dunks and streaming clips were what you chose over trophies. If you're serious about a comeback, get your head right, unlike the shit you pulled in EG. By the way, that's just good advice. You should take that advice from an old man and go, oh yeah, my career has fucking been on this downward trajectory. But you can't. You won't do it. You didn't do it. In fact, you tell me everything I need to know about your prospect of a comeback when you reply with this. And you say, wow, we still talking about that. Fuck it, whatever, bro. You stay in that timeline, you win. Could care less what you think. Now, at some point, you're going to have to wake up to, like, where you are. But, you don't actually have to. You can get to 30 and just have pissed it all away if you want. If, like, getting a taste of winning again isn't going to bring you back, then nothing is. So, I don't know. And everything I've said has been reasonable, it's been fair, it's been honest, and it's been truthful. So anyway, we get back to this, right? I'll just finish this off, and then we'll do some of the fucking comedy that came out of this interview.
And I was like, you don't have to do that. Like, give credit where credit is due. Like, you don't have to give it to me, but at least, like, show some
I gave it to Nico, and I gave it to Munacy quite clearly. You saw the tweet.
respect for, like, the team, at least.
I did.
And I responded in a way where, like, he's actually entitled to his own opinion, and, like, I respect it. Like, if he thinks I'm bad, blah, 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 whatever it is, go ahead. But, like, at least give some credit to the team. You don't have to give credit to me. And I pretty much told him that, like, look, I respect everything that he has to say, and, like, there's no really anything malicious. But in all honesty, like, the field that I know stuff and know my shit is CS, and I'm gonna tell him that, like, look, you don't know shit about CS, and that's the honest truth. And he took it personal and called me narcissistic, and I think he's projecting, but that's pretty much it. I kind of just, like, all right, like, he literally just...
I mean, what I love about that as well is, like, you don't even know what these words mean. Like, you don't know about psychological projection as a concept, do you? Remember, we've established, you know CS. But, like, by the way, like, I ever get triggered, it's a professional player saying they know how to play CS better than me. I fucking hope so. Because it's all you have, a lot of you. You know, me, got my, good with the English language. Like, turns out you can do a bit more than that. Bit more with that. Bit more with having these transferable skills than you can just being good at a video game. But you've chosen this. I respect it. I respect your craft. I have dedicated 20 years to talking about why it's important and how it matters and trying to explain it to normies so you can have a career. So, yeah, I'd hope you could play better than me. Good for you. It's fucking wild. That's the burn.
Cannot keep the level of maturity, so I kind of...
And then, yeah, he said, I can't keep the level of maturity. Blood, you should have been out celebrating. Why are you even on Twitter, man? You just won a trophy out of fucking nowhere. Everyone fucking licking your ass and saying you're the fucking greatest NA player of all time for 0.88. I'd be out celebrating, man.
He just dropped it. Like, he wins. Like, whatever he says, he wins, bro. Like, I just kind of left the conversation from there.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like... Have you seen any other stuff, like... I mean, I think with Richard...
Now we don't have to make excuses for me here, but he's trying to. I don't know why he decided to do this.
In general, I think that, like, when it comes to G2, he has had a lot of thoughts over the last few years, and you're... Unfortunately for that, even though...
I just got caught in the crossfire, huh?
Exactly.
Like, you didn't get caught in anything, mate. You saw a tweet that wasn't about you, really, wasn't about your teammates, and you couldn't handle the minor bit of criticism at the end because you are a narcissist, and you fucking reacted to it in a narcissistic way, which was to leverage your fan base, and then, like a narcissist, I mean, I guess I don't miss. Like a narcissist, you then invented a lie as to why you did it, a lie that holds up to absolutely zero scrutiny whatsoever because you can see what my words said. And it's fine. Again, there's no winning. The stew cells are going to pretend I did X, Y, and Z. You said X, Y, and Z. You're right. I'm wrong. That's it. Fans are mentally ill by definition. That's what fandoms are. They're just mental illness factories, just conveyor belts of fucking unstable losers, just going from one thing to the fucking next, swearing that they love this fucking thing more than anything else until they find something else and then they do the same with that. They can't be helped. They can't be helped. It's a sad, dark time that esports is about 90% populated by people like that. Makes the scene unbearable. But you knew exactly what you were doing. So don't tell me, like you were just some innocent, stuck my head up and there was Richard firing off. I said, right, we all play the game. So after a tournament victory, You know, we're all gearing up to make content now, right? We're going to go on shows and podcasts and talk about stuff. Our social media is part of that. We have to express the opinion. One of the dumbest fucking things people were saying is, why didn't he just let them have their moment and tweet a week later? So let's apply that concept to news and current affairs. There's a clue in the term current affairs as to when you're supposed to be talking about it, you fucking morons. Yeah, just do it a week later when everyone's moved on. Idiocy. And so Maui doesn't need to make excuses here. I'm on point. I said something about Hooksy. By the way, can't help but notice Hooksy didn't tweet at me. Hooksy didn't try and set the Giga Chat army on me, did he? Just took it with a smile and gets on with his work. Weird that. And then you're going to talk about maturity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of different.
By the way, there's not much age difference between Stewie and Hooksy, which I know is sort of mad to sort of process.
Thoughts mostly about the roster without you, obviously, and then because I think one thing that's like a prevailing narrative in our space right now is that like since you haven't been tapped into it entirely, is just that like Monacy's arguably the best player in the world. It's him and Donk, and then Nico's still a top 10 player, and so the majority of credit for every G2 win is it's just simply going to go to them. So
Oh yeah, I mean I understood that from the start. I mean Monacy, when I say like I didn't know much about him, like I heard of the name, I heard of like what like the basic talks around him. I mean I didn't know it was like to that level of like, I mean, even like Donk, for example, when I...
Right, and then this is where he goes on to talk about some other stuff. Now, I'm just going to also show you some fucking mad shit. Like, remember, Stewie has said he knows CS, right? Well, part of that has to surely be keeping up with the fucking scene. And I'm kind of like astounded at this because he said that he didn't really know who Monacy was, right? So I want you to just process this, okay? Right? Just again, because Stewie likes to talk about timelines, right? Evil Geniuses confirm Stewie2k signing 18th of January 2022. Here he is. Oh yeah, bye Malik. Sorry mate, you won't be coming along for this journey, right? So he was an active player joining Evil Geniuses in January 2022, right? You go back a month, okay? And what was all the hubbub? What was the big story in December of 2021? Oh, that's right. It's Monacy going to G2. So this guy who knows CS better than me, right, apparently, didn't even know who the fuck Monacy was when he was an active player on a team that might have had to play against him. Just zero fucking interest. One of the most expensive signings. Oh, yeah, all right, mate. Can see you're fucking dedicated. And I thought there was something up. Because when he said he was standing in for G2, you remember when he tweeted, he said, I can't wait to play with @Nico and a young superstar AWPer, and just didn't at Monacy at all. Right? So, he didn't know who Monacy was. By the way, this isn't like just an interpretation issue. He clarified this. He actively clarified it. Trav CS grabbed this, right? He clarified it in Maui's chat. He was pugging, typing, and doing an interview. So you know you really got Frost Nixon with this, right? Look, I'll be honest with you completely. I knew G2 was an opportunity I couldn't pass up on a Tier 1 event as a stand-in. I literally only wanted to play mainly because of Nico. I didn't even know who Monacy was, to be honest. That's how much I haven't watched any of the events. Bro, you were a player! You were playing an EG! And you're saying you weren't even watching the events. You played at the events. I can't even believe this. This is what I mean. Like, guys, like, this guy was a fucking check stealer. It's there. His own words impugn him. He was stealing checks the whole time, guys. He was so fully checked out CS when he fucking joined EG. He didn't even know who Monacy was. So, Stewie, mate, that's a self-report, bruv. Again, you know, I hate to do it to you, but you're going to keep talking about me and invoking my name and saying, oh, I don't know anything. How the fuck can you stand on this? That's fucking unreal, mate. And all the Stu cells, they go, yeah, but you don't even need to know who the players are. What's prep work, I guess? Remember, he was an in-game leader as well. Can you imagine a serious in-game leader turning around and going, yeah, we're about to play Spirit. I hear they've got like some good kid or something, but we don't need to know who he is because he's probably just a bum, right? So we'll just go in blind, I think. Can you imagine that? So remember, it's not just a player who's stoned, not knowing who another player is. This is a leader running a team, empowered by his organization to run the team to the point where they get rid of a coach, and he doesn't even know who these players are out there. And his timeline is so warped in his own mind, he doesn't realize he played at tournaments with this guy. It's like crazy. So anyway, on top of that, just to underline, I mean, I won't even get into, like, by the way, like, imagine Stewie, like, doing this, like, saying, oh, you know, he's a great teammate. His IQ of the game surprised me instantly. He sees it a lot like, bro, you ain't even close to this kid's level. Like, I mean, this is outrageous. Like, again, narcissist, of course. Munacy is good because he's like me. For real, right? Listen, you're the one saying you're not a narcissist, and I definitely am. I'm capable of paying someone a compliment without going like, oh yeah, James Fudge is a really good journalist. Reminds me a lot of me. That's like a Donald fucking Trump fucking compliment, right? He's a lot like me. They say I could have been a doctor. Yeah, all right. Ridiculous. You didn't even know who the fucker was. But then it doesn't end there.
I mean, even like Donk, for example, when I came back to CS2 and people started talking about him, before he had that Katowice event, when people were talking about him in my stream, and like I just came back, so I didn't even know like who Donk was. I actually thought he was just like a streamer, like a new streamer on the block, and like he was like everyone's talking about him. People were asking me like, when am I gonna play with Donk and like all these things. So I thought he was like a content creator, and I didn't really look into it. And once he had that event, and like
right, so. Not only didn't know who Munacy was, didn't know who Donk was. And you're going to go, well, that's a bit more excusable, right? Donk maybe came through when Stewie kind of was out of it a little bit, right? Well, no, I'm going to pull your card there as well, right? Because I remember when not knowing who Donk was meant you didn't know the game and you were out of touch. Richard, what do you mean? Yeah, that's right. There was a front page Reddit drama about it. Now I want y'all to keep this energy, guys. There should be a front page thread about Stewie's outrageously stupid comments. Let's be consistent. There won't be. We all know why. You're playing your favorites again, right over on Reddit. Okay, but here it is. Nip team director saying no one knew who Donk a few months ago just epitomizes how out of touch and unqualified their staff and management is. On the front page of Reddit, out of touch, how can you not know? I saw clips of CS Pro saying Donk is going to be the next talent months ago. Pretty stupid to admit they don't know who he is. I have no idea why they thought it was a good idea to post this. Not only did other players know about Donk, people wrote articles about how strong Donk was as a prospect. You think that people responsible within any T1 or T2 team should at least be keeping an eye on players who should be prospects. Donk hype has been going on for more than a year, right? So, I mean, again, Stewie was an IGL, right? Stewie, never heard of him. Thought he was a streamer. So, I don't know, guys. Guess we got to be upset, right? Guess we got to get into this drama. No? Oh, okay. Yeah. Guess what? We won't be doing. We just laugh it off, don't we? We just laugh him off when he says ridiculous things. Yeah. He's the guy who knows more about CS. He's forgotten more about CS than I'll ever know. Doesn't know who Munacy is. Didn't even know how to tag him on Twitter. So I don't know, guys. I think the interview is really instructive to anyone who's got a brain and is capable of looking at things objectively as to kind of where he's at. The comeback isn't real, guys. He doesn't give a fuck. He's going to milk this for stream views, grinding Mythic all day. And it's sad. It's a waste of talent. But he's not going to change. Because change requires you to acknowledge something ain't right. And he ain't got that in him no more. But I want to applaud Maui. That interview couldn't have been fucking funnier as far as I'm concerned. It couldn't have been more fucking perfect. He can't even keep his story straight. He can't even explain his own reactions in a way that holds up to basic scrutiny. So, yeah, okay, that's the new king, 0.88. That's the new king of Counter-Strike. I usually wouldn't even bother responding to this, but you have to understand, after he went on his stream and implied that, like, oh, I've heard all these stories about Richard Lewis and the things that I saw, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Nah, fuck you, miss me with that. The Stu cells are going to say you're right, you're great, you're amazing. People who don't know what a fucking idiot you are, now they do. And total self-reports, your own words, hoisted by your own petard. Fucking sad.